Hi guys, so here we are after reading chapter 27 of the book of Matthew, and now it's time to review.
And we have one chapter left.
Tomorrow's the last day, guys.
Yep, and like yesterday's chapter, this is also another long chapter.
Yes, there was so much.
Yeah, they should have given Matthew at least another 5 chapters, especially with these verses, like just kind of
to break them up a little bit
in those sections. So I'll let you go first.
So for me, since there was so much, I have quite a few. I just want to mention a little something of different verses, but I just want to mention, like, there were a lot of tough things to read here since it's Jesus' crucifixion. So I'm gonna be honest, I wanted to just scroll past. I say scroll because I read it on my phone. But I wanted to just scroll past, like, all the things, his suffering and everything that was happening to him. But anyway, so I'll start with verse 4, and it's basically when Judas feels remorseful, saying, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." And they said, "What is that to us? You see to it." Then he threw down the pieces of silver in the temple, and he departed, and he went to hang himself. I just feel so bad for Judas.
Like a sad situation, right?
Yeah, like you can tell, like he felt so desperately bad, like when he realized
what he did,
because I mean, yeah, he did something wrong in trying to get payment for turning in Jesus, but I mean, some scholars out there, some Bible scholars, believe that he was thinking that Jesus was going to fight and he was going to bring his kingdom
down here on earth. Yeah.
So I can only imagine, because I mean, we know that Jesus would have forgiven him.
He was around Jesus to understand the forgiveness of Jesus.
But it was just so great. I just want you guys to remember that there is nothing too great that you guys have done that Jesus will not forgive. Just come to him, ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And you go next.
So for me, it was when Jesus faces Pilate. And verse 13 and 14 says, "And Pilate said to him, 'Do you not hear how many things they testify against you?' And he answered him not one word. So the governor marveled greatly." So just the silence of Jesus. People were accusing him of doing these wrong things, yet Jesus just stayed silent. And not to say in this whole thing he stayed silent, because he does answer Pilate. Pilate asked Jesus in the few verses before, in verse 11, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus said to him, "It is as you say." So it wasn't that Jesus was just keeping his mouth shut. He answered when he needed to be answered. It was just that he didn't answer his accusers, because there was no reason to answer his accusers.
It's like they kept nagging him and taunting him, and they just wanted him to keep saying it.
Which teaches us something about how we should deal with our accusers, people who might try to say things to us, bad things to us. Like, there's no reason to entertain the conversation, because they're already coming into the conversation with their mindset. Yeah. They already have this idea of you. Mm-hmm. And what am I gonna gain by arguing back?
Yeah, that's
Jesus
true.
Knew that. Like, he's not gonna gain anything at this point to argue back, to say, well, you're calling me this and I'm calling you that.
It's a perfect example. Okay, so jumping into mine, another little verse here, verse 18. It says, "For he knew that they had handed him over because of envy." I just thought that was crazy. I don't remember reading this the last few times whenever I read Matthew. I don't remember reading this, but I just really thought about how many things do we do? How far do we go sometimes because of envy or jealousy?
Yeah.
And so I just thought it was a good reminder of how far it can get. And, we need to hold ourselves back and pray and ask God for help, to overcome that.
For me, there was another thing that came to mind. I can't not talk about this chapter without mentioning the crucifixion of Jesus.
Exactly.
And in verse 46, it says, "In about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, 'Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani?' That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" So at that point, Jesus is hanging on the cross, and sin has separated him from God. that, like, and that's what sin does to us. You know, our sins separate us from God. And because Jesus took the weight of our own sins on the cross, it had created this separation. You know, this, just think about, like, Jesus and God have always been there together since eternity. And now there was this kind of veil in front of them. Now what God was seeing was no longer Jesus. He was seeing the sins of our sins hanging on the cross, which I thought it was kind of just that, like, that agony of not feeling God in your life anymore because of sin.
Oh, it makes me kind of get choked up just thinking about it, really. So
there's one more, right? You have one more.
Moving on, yes. Verse 51. Then behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth quaked, and the rocks were split. It's just crazy how, you know, when he died, like,
the world shook.
The earth shook.
Yeah.
The veil tore. And then in verse 57, talks about a man named Joseph, and this was a rich man. I like the fact that Matthew mentioned he was a rich man. Especially
after mentioning earlier, I'm sure you remember when the rich young ruler comes to Jesus, and Jesus says it's impossible. It seems as if it was impossible for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven, right?
Yeah, it even mentions that a camel can go through the eye of a
needle. Yeah, before even a rich man enters the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah, and that seems impossible.
But yet we see it here, and it's not just a rich man. What else does it say about him?
It says he also became a disciple of Jesus. So this man became, not only was he a rich man, he became a disciple. So it's not about having the money, it's not about having things, it's about you. Like, it always comes down to God. Your love for God, your love for people. So who are you? What is your character? What type of person are you representing?
Your social class does not define you. Nothing defines you other than your love for God and for others.
So we hope you guys remember all these things, and we hope to hear what stood out to you or what you just want to share with us.
And we'll see you tomorrow for one last chapter.
God bless you guys.